Okay, next up is a question. There's a lot of buzz about this. So I want to see what you guys have to say. And that's why I'm going to go with Matt's question. It says, what are your thoughts on the new Fidelity Bitcoin ETF? With it being so volatile, would you consider it an absolute no for a Roth account? Or would you allocate 1% and that would be small enough to minimize the risk? What do you think?
I want to get your thoughts because you and I haven't even talked about this. This is what's crazy. But I do want to, I have one point or question I have about all this.
Okay.
One of my things, because you guys know I started dabbling with Bitcoin just because I had so many questions about it. But I don't mind confessing to you guys, I completely got out of, because I had built up more than one full Bitcoin and I had some other cryptos that I'd put in there just because I was dabbling with this whole thing. Learn how about it, because everybody's like, hey, boomer, you just don't understand this. So I was like, well, I'll show them. I'll actually put my money where it is to show you that I'm going to go create some experience to gain wisdom. Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed, for the last few years, the top of your tax return, if you look on right at the top of your personal tax return, there's going to be a yes/no question, primarily focusing cryptocurrencies, because I think the government is, essentially putting. I was about to say Wile E. Coyote, but it's much more, has a lot more teeth than that, and the fact that they're setting a trap in a lot of ways where they're making you voluntarily share whether or not you have jumped on this crypto revolution. And I think a lot of people are not aware of this. They're not answering the question. And I wouldn't be surprised if down the road there wasn't going to be where the IRS then goes and pings Coinbase and all the other wallet holders to share who the accounts are so they can then cross-reference to see who is actually reporting the income or the transactions. So it gave me pause that there is this difference that's sitting out there. It's no different than offshore accounts. When you fill out your organizer or your tax preparer, you'll be shocked to find out how many questions are saying, hey, do you have an account outside the United States? Because the IRS is very keen on going out there and making sure that you're not evading taxes by using some of these products or tools. They're all about minimizing taxes through legal loopholes. Notice I said legal, but they're very much against illegal tax evasion. And that's just something I put out there because I don't love that trap that's being put out there. Now you can bring it back because it is kind of a big announcement that Fidelity now has a Bitcoin ETF.
Yeah, right. So the way that you used to traditionally have to get exposure to this asset was you'd have to go do exactly what you said. But now they are making it more retail, more easy. You can go buy this ETF. And look, if you're a hater out there, go ahead and get ready because I'm going to just give you tons of fuel for the fire. Cryptocurrencies in and of themselves are interesting. It's a very interesting thing right now, and it will be very interesting to watch what happens over the coming years, the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. And in full disclosure, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. I don't have a clear idea of how cryptocurrencies will actually be used 10 years from now, but I do think it's interesting. When I think about my portfolio though, and I think about the way that I allocate assets and the way that I'm talking to clients who ask about this, is that when it comes to allocating portfolio dollars, there is investing and then there's speculating. And in my opinion, cryptocurrencies still fall into the speculative camp. They fall into speculative camp no different than options trading strategies or other types of technical trading, those types of things. It falls in that camp. And that's not to say that you can't do it. That's not to say that it might not potentially work out, but you have to understand, where does speculation fit in your overall financial picture? And my opinion is that when it comes to utilizing something like this, let's say that you use that Roth, that coveted Roth that the government says, hey, you can only put $7,000 a year into this thing. And you say, all right, I'm going to make my Roth contribution and I'm going to put all 7,000 in this Bitcoin ETF. And let's say it doesn't work out. Like it doesn't pan out for you and it loses money or it just kind of sits where it is. You can't get that $7,000 back into the Roth. So with those types of precious dollars, I don't know that that's necessarily where I'd be speculating. We all like to think, oh, well, I'll get tons of tax-free growth and it'll be amazing. So that's what I'm going to do. And while that could happen, If you were going to own this, it might be more valuable to own it inside of an after-tax account where if it does go down or you decide that you no longer want to participate in that, you could sell it and harvest the loss and actually be able to use that. Wherever you hold it, wherever you decide to locate that in the portfolio, you need to ask the question, am I at a place in my wealth building journey where speculation makes sense? Meaning, am I following the financial order of operations? Brian, will you hold the thing for me?
Oh.
Am I following the 9-step tried and true process that I know where my dollars are going? Am I saving 25%? Am I putting money in my 401k? Am I getting my employer match? Am I maxing out my Roth? Am I doing all of those things? Do I have my debt under control? And if I can answer affirmatively in those ways, well then okay, there's nothing wrong with maybe me speculating if that's something that I'm interested in. But you got to make sure that when it comes to speculation, that is vacation money, not grocery money. And you got to understand the difference in those two.
As Charles would say.
As Charles would say.
So it is one of those things. That's why probably this is something you go dabble in 3 to 5%. I'll play the part of the boomer. I don't mind because a lot of you guys were saying I'm the boomer, even though guys clearly I'm Gen X.
Clearly.
But it is one of those things. The thing about a lot of people still have struggles. If you think about like the Warren Buffetts of the world, Bitcoin still in a lot of ways, it doesn't have earnings. It doesn't have innovation. The technology has innovation, but the actual coin that you're buying doesn't innovate. It's this thing that you're only buying. The only way you make money is if the person that comes after you pays more than you paid. There's not going to be rental income. There's not going to be interest. There's not going to be dividends. That's just something to be aware of, and it lends it more into the momentum play that Bo's talking about with speculation. And I will share, this is a problem I've had and I don't want to bleed it into another question, but when you talk about triple levered and now quadruple levered and other things, people don't understand sometimes, because I do agree, you need to probably play around with this type of stuff like after-tax accounts since there's a high probability of volatility and losses. But if you want to have favored tax treatment, you have to hold it for 12 months. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you're gambling and you have so much volatility, I'm talking about just in the time that I owned Bitcoin, I mean, I was having 40% swings within like on a monthly basis. I mean, this thing was, it was a whipsaw, and it's just hard to hold something longer, to get it out of short term into long term holdings of 12 months with that much volatility, because it makes you become an emotional wreck in a lot of ways. What I found is this thing was such a small percentage of my holdings, but I started hyper focusing on it. Just because of the volatility drew attention.
Took a lot of emotional
space. So
space.
it's just, ask yourself if it's worth it. Now, look, some people love the momentum, the play, and the fact that it's just somewhat current event, trendy,
feels cool,
chasing the hot dot.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not going to get mad at you for doing that, but just make sure it has its place. As Bo said, this is for that vacation money, definitely not, for eating or paying the mortgage or anything that you kind of need to count on to pay for your family down the road in retirement.
Yep.